Beneath the shimmering veil of beauty lies a truth so grotesque, it fractures the porcelain myth of the goddess of love. What if the most radiant deity of Olympus was born not from grace, but from a primal act of mutilation? What if her rose-crowned temples hid rituals so visceral they blurred the line between ecstasy and horror? This is not the Aphrodite you think you know. This is the story of a goddess whose allure was forged in chaos, whose whispers ignited wars, and whose cults practiced devotion drenched in blood. The birth from blood and sea foam. Long before poets sang of her laughter, before artists carved her marble curves, Aphrodite erupted into existence through an act of cosmic violence. The Titan Cronus, hungry for power, severed the genitals of his father Uranus, the primordial sky. The severed flesh plummeted into the churning sea, where it mingled with foam, Aphros, and from that grotesque union, a goddess rose. Not from the gentle cradle of waves, but from a broth of vengeance and bodily ruin. Hesiod's Theogony dares to name it. Her origin is not one of light, but of blood. The sea recoiled as she emerged, radiant yet tainted, her beauty a mask for the brutality that birthed her. Even her name whispers duality, Aphrodite, risen from foam, but also tied to Aphros, the sea foam's white frenzy, a metaphor, scholars whisper, for semen, the primal seed of life and violence. Here, in her genesis, lies her first paradox, a deity of desire, born from the mutilation of a god, destined to wield love as both creation and weapon. The war goddess in a lover's gown. We think of her as soft, draped in silks, scattering roses. But dig deeper. In Sparta, warriors invoked her as Aphrodite Areia, the warlike. Her statues bore armor, her altars reeked of burnt flesh. Before the Greeks refined her, she was Ishtar of Babylon, who slaughtered lovers and resurrected them. She was Astarte of Phoenicia, whose priests castrated themselves in her honor. These ancient goddesses ruled sex and destruction as twin forces, and Aphrodite inherited their blade. When Paris judged her fairest, her promise of Helen's beauty was no idle flirtation. It was a calculated strike. She weaponized desire, igniting the Trojan War, watching cities burn for the sake of a mortal's lust. Homer's Iliad hides this truth in plain sight. As Greeks and Trojans slaughter each other, Aphrodite descends to shield Paris, her favorite, her pawn. She rescues him not with tenderness, but with a mist of darkness, a divine abduction. Love, here, is not solace. It is a battle strategy. The cursed gifts and the price of devotion. Her myths are riddled with traps. Consider her gifts. To Pygmalion, she granted a statue's transformation into living flesh. But read between the lines. The sculptor's obsession with his ivory maiden bordered on madness. Was her miracle a reward, or a punishment for a man who rejected real women? The child born of this union, Paphos, founded her most infamous cult site, where priestesses performed sacred acts no historian dares detail. And what of her famed girdle, embroidered with love, desire, and seductive murmur? In the Odyssey, Hera borrows it to manipulate Zeus, but the artifact's true power is darker. Ancient texts hint it could warp minds, reducing mortals to ravenous beasts. No wonder Hephaestus, her smith god husband, trapped her in a golden net when she betrayed him, a rare moment when the hunter became prey. Cults of ecstasy and the shadow of death. Her worship was never chaste. At the Aphrodisia festival, celebrants bathed her statues in menstrual blood and seawater, a ritual rebirth mirroring her own origins. In Corinth, her temple employed hierodules, sacred prostitutes, who performed acts of divine union to channel her power. But this was no free-spirited revelry. To lie with a priestess was to risk possession. The line between mortal and divine dissolved in those chambers, leaving devotees either enlightened or broken. Then there is Adonis, her mortal lover, torn apart by a boar, a death some say she orchestrated. His blood birthed anemones, but his cults practiced eerie rites, women planting gardens of Adonis in broken pots, watching sprouts wither in days, a metaphor for beauty's inevitable decay. Even in love, Aphrodite courted death. The vengeful queen and her monstrous legacy. Cross her, and her wrath made Medusa's curse seem merciful. When the Trojan princess Timene refused to worship her, Aphrodite cursed her to lust after her own father. The girl hanged herself, her corpse birthed the first almonds, bitter and poisonous. When the sailor Glaucus scorned her, she fed his horses a potion of madness, hurling him to a watery grave. Even her children were terrors: Hermaphroditus, the androgynous deity of blurred boundaries, Priapus, the grotesquely phallic gardener god, and the Erinyes themselves, the Furies who avenged familial bloodshed. Her most chilling epithet: Aphrodite Melones, the Black One. In Cyprus, followers offered her black animals under crescent moons, begging her to spare them from the darker edges of desire, obsession, betrayal, the love that rots the soul. The unanswered mysteries. What secrets died with her cults? On the island of Lesbos, inscriptions mention Aphrodite praxis, the sexual deed, a rite lost to time. In Anatolia, she merged with a prehistoric mother goddess who demanded child sacrifices. And what of her ties to the sea, where sailors reported phantom songs luring ships into reefs? Was she calling them home to her foam-born realm, or punishing them for trespassing? The goddess who mirrors our darkness. Aphrodite endures not because she is gentle, but because she is real. She is the embodiment of humanity's darkest truth, that love and violence are twin currents in the same river. We built her altars to worship beauty, yet spilled blood to appease her shadows. She is the scream in the kiss, the rot in the rose, the chaos that churns beneath the surface of every heart. So the next time you hear her name, remember, the goddess of love was born from a wound that never healed. And perhaps, in our own obsessions, we are all her children. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. Until next time.